say that in Europe it might go on. So where and when will it stop? Actually, will the rise of low-cost carriers within Europe ever stop?
I don't think it will stop, not for a long time, because I think America is very different to Europe. Much greater distances. I think in Europe, intra-Europe is a very connected. EasyJet connects around Europe very, very well. And I think also, if you look at, say, Spain or the UK, the penetration of low fares airlines is much higher. So in the UK, it's 57%. In Spain, it's almost 60%, I would say. So France actually is exceptional in that the penetration here is about 30%. So I think there's actually quite a lot of room in France, for instance, to grow more. But even in areas like the UK, short-haul, low-fares airlines will grow. I mean, we know that we can put capacity into 5 or 6 different places in the UK, and we will make very good returns.
How do you explain the specificity of France? Why is it so low in France? Is there...
I think well, there are many, many reasons for that. I mean, you know, you have Air France has still got 50% of the market. It is a very big player here, and that is fine. But I think that leaves on the short haul, whether it's domestic or international, it leaves quite a lot of opportunity, because actually all the legacy carriers make money on long haul and particularly on premium. So, you know, all we do is short haul Europe. That's all EasyJet does. We're not interested in long haul. We do what we do really, really well, and we concentrate on that. And so that makes us very good at it, and it makes us much more profitable as a result.
Okay, very interesting. Didier, do you share this view that we might reach 50, 60, 70% of the market that would be under control of low-cost carriers?
Yes, perhaps back to the market and the customer needs. You have different segments. We could segment the market in 2 different ways. The first segment is business customers and some VFR. That's we could highlight VFR. It's visiting friends and relatives. So and you have some of them closer to the business segment, and on the other hand, you have some leisure traffic. And on the business traffic, the legacy or the product, the services is quite different right now, and the behaviors of customers as well. You need to have some destination frequencies and so on, and the assets of the legacies is quite higher right now regarding the LCC.
Sorry, the LCC, could you, I mean, I guess
the low-cost
we have a lot of
carriers, the low-cost
okay,
carriers,
the LCC,
the low-cost
okay.
carriers. So that's in fact the first reason why the legacy carriers have some market share to save and to protect. And the second main reason is the assets and the historical assets of the legacy carriers regarding their high level of slots or presence in the main business airports, Air France in Orly and Charles de Gaulle, Munich, and they are still able to protect their own market as if you have a retail shop in the Champs-Élysées. So you are still there since a long, long time, and so that's give you quite a barrier to try to your competition.
Yes, precisely. I mean, this issue of slots, it's crucial for competition, of course. Could you tell us a little bit how I mean, did it change the way these slots are allocated, I mean, or can be transferred from one company to the other in the last years? I mean, are we heading to some changes in that field? Because obviously, it is a barrier to the I mean, for the newcomers. It has been so. So, how, in practice, I mean, how does this market of slots function?
In the market, there is several cases regarding the saturation of and the attractivity of the airports and the catch area you are from where your operation is doing, in fact, and running. So, in some airports with quite saturation, Heathrow airports, Orly airports, and so on, you are there, so it's an asset to operate from this place. So it's quite, if you stop an operation in the UK market, you could sell the slots. In the most of the European, you have some rules, grandfather rules and so on, and you have some bodies regarding an independent bodies able to transfer the slot you are not still operate to another competitors. But the game, it's not to transfer the slots if it's quite attractive for your airline.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's quite the difficult game for the legacy and for the LCC. It's if you are a legacy airline and if you have some routes not so profitable, if you decide to stop the routes, you will have one of your competitors able to operate one other destination you perhaps are quite profitable. So you need to be careful on the way you are managing your asset.
Okay, very good. Alex, your company, Clicker, that has later merged with Vueling, has a very, very strong position in Barcelona. You have, I was told, about 35% of the market. Could you simply tell us how you did that? I mean, how did you manage to catch 35% of the market within a few years? Whereas, as Didier told us, I mean, there are a lot of barriers to the entry. So how did you do?
There is two magic formulas. One is hard work, and the other one is good people. So hard work, good people, you can do many, many, many things. We have had a lot of obstacles throughout this process since 2006. We have had some new entrants into our markets. We have had some airlines disappear from our markets. But at the end, I think that the combination of hard work, of a good team that has been able to recognize the opportunities as they were coming through, is what has delivered Vueling today with 90 airplanes and 140 airports and all these different kinds of things. So I like to tell you more technical terms, but the technical terms are not so important. What's important is a conviction that there is a fantastic project with a fantastic team who are willing to work very hard to make it through. That's the main thing.
Well, I think the assistants might be interested in some technical details as well, because they are all
okay, let's get technical. Let's get technical. So the technicality part of a carrier in short haul in Europe, unfortunately, it's very uncomfortable. It's only about one thing to start with, and only one. It is the cost base. The cost base gives you the flexibility to do things. Now, over time, we have been able, all of us, everyone, to identify that there are things that you can do with the cost base that other people cannot do with the same cost base. So today you find Vueling with business class, with frequent flyer, with lounges, with GDSs, connectivity, and interline with other airlines. There is no difference between Vueling and a traditional airline, but only if the cost base is kept at a very competitive level. So the technicality behind the success is, number one, an absolute high discipline on making decisions, taking cost into account. And second, a desire to prove that you can break the rules of low-cost carriers. When we started this industry, we were told.
What do you mean by breaking the rules?
Well, there were rules. You know, there was a guy in Dallas called Herb Kelleher that started Southwest. Then there was other people, the precursor, the founder of EasyJet, the founder or the person that has taken Ryanair to where they are, and they wrote some rules informally. You should not assign seats. You should not sell through travel agencies. You should have less consideration towards the passenger. These rules, we have been breaking them one by one by one by one, and we will continue to break them. In fact, I think we have broken most of them.
Yeah, precisely. What we observe is that on one side, most legacy airlines have now their own low-cost subsidiary, and they offer very low fares under this brand, very simplified services, and they become largely indistinguishable from real low-cost companies, I mean the former newcomers. On the other side, the traditional low-cost carriers are moving to, are upgrading very often their services, as you just told us. So rather than competition between legacy airlines and low-cost airlines, aren't we heading to a new segmentation of the market, simply where everyone competes with everyone, and traditional and low-cost carriers are just getting closer to each other? Is that the way it's changing? Maybe I should ask the question to Caroline.
So I think that we've been competing with, our primary competition actually is not Vueling or Ryanair, it's legacy carriers. So whether they are legacy carriers who are predominantly long-haul operators who do short-haul, now they do a lot of point-to-point that they don't need to do, but they've done it historically, so they do it. It's not just about their feeder. Or whether it's a low-cost subsidiary, there's still competition, right? The big difference is that we're not the same. So our cost base is hugely different to every legacy carrier and their low-cost subsidiary, and they will never ever be able to close that gap, because if you're not born a low-cost carrier, then you will never be able to do that with your cost base. It is virtually impossible. The second thing, of course, is that the low-cost operating model is only relevant to people like us who work in the airline. It is irrelevant to the passenger. So as far as the passenger is concerned, the reason low fares airlines are doing well is because there is no different from a customer point of view. When you're doing short haul in particular, you don't need a glass of champagne and a lounge and a this and a that. What you want is fast track security. You want to get into the plane quickly, you want to get off the plane quickly, you want to get to your destination, because many of our business travelers, and we have a lot of business travelers, in France 25% of EasyJet passengers are business passengers. On Paris-Toulouse, that would be 45%, right? So lots of business, but they want efficiency and speed, because they will often be going to a place for a day. They won't be spending 3-4 days. They're not going to the Far East, when it's a 13-hour journey. So it's a very different requirement. And I think, there is a huge difference in the way we operate compared to a legacy or a low-cost subsidiary of a legacy. But the passenger does not see that, because what they see is very efficient, friendly service, helpful, good brand, safety conscious, etc., etc.
Thank you. Didier, Alex and Caroline told us that the cost base is the secret. I mean, could you explain us why? I mean, what makes actually the cost of those two kind of carriers so different?
Based on the customer's market value, in fact, you have two different market values. The first one is in France, the business clients from Paris to France, it's the value of the market is double than from one of the French region to the Europe. So that means it's not a problem of, at the end it's a cost issue, but in fact, first of all, it's a market issue. So you are able to still get and work in the market and be present in the market if you are able to be under the market value. So regarding the business passengers, they need for sure the different, they don't need some lounges and so on for most of them, but they need to have a lot of frequencies, they need to have some contracts with their companies, they need to have different kind of ways for the booking and so on. And right now, today, the legacies have quite, due to the, in fact, the network and the capabilities to fidelize their customers and be present with their aircraft, with their operation, they are still there. And Air France, Lufthansa, and so on, it's 80% of the business segments market share because they are there. Regarding your question of the cost, you're right. If I am a legacy and I want to operate to the European market, I need to reduce my cost. The difference between LCC and low-cost carriers and legacy is 40, 50% in terms of difference.
Yes,
And where it's from, it's from a lot of things. It's social regulation rules from many years, a lot of agreements with social unions and so on. The way they are able to operate, because in the legacies, they have a dilemma regarding the way they have to feed some of them have
Yes.
to feed the hub.
We talk about that, but Caroline, you wanted to say
Just on the
something.
business point, I mean, you're right, there are established historic practices, but EasyJet has got contracts with 40% of the CAC 40 already. We're using all the GDS. We are able to offer something which is beneficial, huge value savings for companies, which I think, particularly through the recession, people have really sat up and noticed. So I think even that, I agree with you, that is absolutely the segment. But for us, that is a great opportunity because we can see our growth coming from that segment.
And it's going to get better because we maintain the pressure to have very low costs, and at the same time, we maintain the competitive environment to make the product even better. So we should be expecting to pay about the same price or less and get a better product over the next 5 to 10 years, without a doubt. We want our product to get better and better and better and better. And we will find ways, not the ways that was done traditionally, but we will find ways to offer that product without impacting the cost base.
So that's the reason, in fact, that the legacies and so on need to work strongly to decrease their cost, to fit. You mentioned, or you will mention the hybrid or something like that model, and they have some time, but not a lot.
What's
for
that?
such a
An
transformation.
hybrid model. What's that? I mean, what do you mean by that? It's half
fact,
low cost and half. I mean, but Caroline told us that the traditional carriers will never ever have the cost structure of a low cost. So,
it's very
is
hard.
there a possibility to?
It's quite hard. In the US, they got the targets sometimes, most of them, but for sure the social regulation is quite different. So
But
you're right.
The discussion
That
is
will be
very
very,
easy.
very difficult for the legacy, but that's the way they implement the Vueling in the EAG British Airways group. That's one of the Air France and Lufthansa is trying to develop some LCC regarding Transavia, Germanwings, and perhaps tomorrow another model. But yes, for sure, the competition is quite fierce.
But it's not about labels, high cost, low cost, hybrid. We as human beings need labels. I am an airline person, you're a consultant. We want labels. It's not about labels, it's about profitable short-haul flying or unprofitable short-haul flying. And at the moment, there are some people that are profitable when they fly short-haul, and there are some others that are not. Traditionally, it was okay not to be profitable in the short haul.
So we have worked out, we've done a huge amount of analysis on short-haul Europe, as you would expect. There are 86 million seats in Europe, intra-Europe, that are flown point to point by legacy carriers that are not feeding their long-haul network. 86 million seats a year, which is just opportunity.
So that's the
Because that's all unprofitable flying,
Okay.
to Alex's point.
and you would do that while making profit, you think?
Well, not all of it, because some of it will just be routes that you can't make money on.
Cancel.
But some of it, we wouldn't fly a route that we couldn't make money on. We don't have anyone to please, except our passengers. So if there's demand, we will fly the route, we'll fly it well. So of that 86 million, there'll be a large proportion of that if we were flying it, we would make money on those routes.
Okay. And how will you do that? I mean, what do you need to do that? You need to
We
be able
just
to
need
buy
us.
slots? You
We
need
just
to
need us.
buy
We ju-
new airplanes?
No,
You need
no. We just need us.
Keep doing our job.
We just have to keep doing what we're doing but to both your points is because legacy carriers have always flown those routes, they will be protecting grandfather rights. So they will sometimes they will fly unprofitably to protect slot positions, or they will fly unprofitably because they think it's feeding the hub, or they're protecting a competition. There'll be all sorts of reasons, but the fact is they don't need that point-to-point traffic for their long-haul network. So eventually, it is highly likely that they will have to come off that, unless they are funded by somebody else that doesn't mind about them not making money.
Yeah. Okay. but not all low-cost companies are that profitable. I mean, EasyJet has had record profits last year. Vueling is doing well, but if you look at Ryanair, they're not doing that well. So could you...
They're very profitable.
I was going to say.
They're profitable. They're just doing worse than they were doing last year, but they are very profitable.
What do you mean? They're just doing worse than in the past?
They have come from, they've had, I mean, far be it for me to ever defend Ryanair, but they have had 20 years of profits, right?
Okay.
So I think you see that if you're a low fares airline, you are profitable by and large, unless you're a subsidiary of another airline. Now, he doesn't count because
I'm
IAG...
not a subsidiary.
No,
of an airline.
IAG bought Vueling,
Okay.
and that's very different.
They didn't build it up.
They
within
didn't
the
create
group.
it, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's different.
But is there still room to save cost? I mean, to reduce cost? I mean, is there still room for productivity gains in the market? Because it seems that the management is already so precise, so tight that we can't go much further. I mean, how I mean, which are the ways
there is, and I have to admit, I shouldn't act surprised, but sometimes I act surprised. We have a team of people who have a daily job, but they track our cost savings year on year. And we merged with another airline, ClickAir, in 2009. So the opportunities were quite large, many millions. And then time went by, and the opportunities were not of many millions. They were smaller. But every year, we managed to find more and more things that can be done to optimize, to be better, to introduce technology, to look at a different way to do things. And every year we manage to lower the costs ex CPI, RPI adjustments. So what you need, there's a theory. The theory is there is always an opportunity to lower costs. What you need is the mentality to go after it. And if you have the mentality and the culture in the company to go after it, you will find a way.
Yeah, so I mean, we report to the market, as you know, we're a publicly listed company, and we have, for the next 3 to 5 years, we know exactly where our costs are coming from, and they will not affect the passenger, and they will not affect safety. I mean, they're the two areas that we will absolutely focus on investment in, but there is so much opportunity. If you just look at an airport experience, and you just focus on automation at an airport, the savings both for the airport and the airline are considerable. At the moment, every process that you look at an airport is manual, and so there are some really considerable savings to come. And that's just one example.
And do you think, Didier, that the market would consolidate a bit in the next years in Europe, or no?
I think it's
already
in
quite
fact it's quite
concentrated.
already consolidated. You have 2 big or 3 big low cost, in fact, in such a market, and you have a lot of small initiative. They could, for sure, born and perhaps will die. But in fact, you have Ryanair, quite strong and quite right now a different market, but they will move.
Who might die?
We don't know, but you have still a lot of airlines because a lot of countries with.
You mean small?
Yes, very small airlines,
ones.
not the big one. And you have Norwegian right now. They have ordered a lot of aircraft. Perhaps we'll see, because the competition is quite fierce. The list, if you count and if you sum the list of order regarding the Boeing and Airbus, and just have a look on the market trends. The overcapacity will be perhaps in 4 or 5 years on the market. So some of them bet regarding the gain of market shares and the weaknesses from the others.
You mean we will have overcapacities appearing in the next years?
We could, if all the others already in the EasyJet, Vueling, Norwegian, and Ryanair, they operate all the orders with a market or regarding 10% growth on the some leisure markets and decreasing in the business markets. But all in all, the market, it's 3-4% in terms of market growth. Yes, there is an overcapacity at the end.
We find ourselves with two situations. One is the investors are looking at the United States. The consolidation in the United States has yielded fantastic benefits. For the first time in a really long time, US airlines are making money in a consistent way. And finally, it looks like the airline industry there may be of investment grade. Amazing. So now the investors are looking at the other side of the Atlantic, and they are opening their hands and they're saying, what about you? The other situation we find ourselves is that we're not the United States. We are a bunch of countries with our own regulations, with our own competitive stances, and that is a barrier for consolidation, for sure. Now, if the EU takes a more active position in facilitating many of those barriers, certainly, statistically, there will be more consolidation.
I think to Didier's point about overcapacity, I think it's a very important point, because overcapacity is not good for anybody. It's not good for the airline industry, right? It makes it an irrational industry. So I think that Norwegian have just actually set up a leasing company in Dublin. I think that's an indicator that they will not be taking up all the capacity in the market that they had originally thought they might do. I don't know what you think, but it seems, I don't have any inside information on that. It just, when I read that they're setting up a leasing company to lease those brand new aircraft to other people, that means they won't be taking that capacity. And I also think if fuel stays high, you will probably see a shakeout and not see overcapacity in the way you've described, because I think people behave very rationally when the fuel price remains high. So there are lots of variables that will kick in. Our own fleet plans, you know, we have a fleet agreement with Airbus. We have a lot of aircraft on order, but we have total flexibility. We can go up, we can go down, and I think every airline will have built in some flexibility into their fleet requirements, because no one knows what's going to happen in 10 years or 5 years. So I wouldn't bank on it being definitely an overcapacity market.
Alex, you told us that the EU could do more to open the market, to facilitate consolidation, to make it, make this industry more profitable. I mean, could you be more precise? I mean, what should Brussels do actually to make this industry still more competitive and profitable?
I have a very boring answer. I'm sorry. I apologize. The industry will become more competitive when it gets its costs right. And until then, it's not competitive. Unfortunately, the public wants to pay 50 euros. They don't want to pay 100 euros. So you have to offer a product which is profitable at 50 euros or 60 euros. So ultimately, you see actions like our parent company, IAG, buying Vueling as a low-cost vehicle for them to grow. We see the efforts of other airlines. I'm not sure if they are as effective, but the market will judge that. Also trying to find lower cost vehicles to develop themselves. Ultimately, the ability to have a stable, lower cost operating environment across the whole of Europe will generate more jobs, will generate more routes, will generate more economic activity. Think of all those 80 million seats which are being flown ineffectively, that if we're flown effectively, there would be more jobs, there would be more economic activity. So it's a race driven by the profitability of the companies and the shareholders of each company, but the end result of that race is good for society.
Didier, we talk about those point-to-point flights which don't feed any hub and which are not profitable, or at least part of them. I mean, how do you explain that? Why do we still have this kind of flights? Also, again, traditional companies are losing money on them.
In fact, that's quite the dilemma, because most of them, when they operate from Heathrow and from Frankfurt or from Charles de Gaulle, in fact, feed some long-haul flights. So they are in the dilemma to still be on the route or to have some smaller aircraft. The problem with the smaller aircraft it's per seat, it's a higher cost. So it's quite the right balance between passenger and routes unprofitable because you feed some profitable routes on some one hand. And on the other hand, you're right, they have to point-to-point activities from Orly or from Munich without any feeding. But some of them are quite profitable and some of them are not. If they decide to cut unprofitable routes, the competition will operate profitable routes. So it's a double pain for them. So what they try to do is to reduce cost. The problem is the time. But yes, for sure, they need to reduce cost or to leave the market.
So if I well understand, the two of us are just waiting for them to lose so much money that they will finally leave this.
I'm not waiting.
This way.
No, it sounds easy. I mean, nothing that we do is easy. I mean, in terms of, it's very, very hard work. And there are no easy wins, actually, now in Europe, to be honest with you. I think there are lots of opportunities for us. There are lots of areas that we can go into and we know that we will do well. But it makes it sound too easy when you say, are you just waiting for them to lose money? You know, I mean, it's hard work every day.
Yes, of course.
Really is.
No, I didn't want to let people think that it was easy, but I thought in a sense, I mean, we were waiting, or it was to be waited,
we're talking about a dramatic structural shift. And whenever you have a dramatic structural change in a market, you know, some of it happens very quickly, and that is really, in the last 15 years, air travel in Europe has changed beyond belief, right? So it's much more open, it's low fares airlines, there was a time when it cost 600 euros to fly anywhere in Europe. It was like very, very, very expensive. It is now much less expensive, whoever you fly. That's a dramatic shift. And now I think we still have that structural change, but it's a period of transition. And you know, the topic of this is, will short-haul Europe be dominated by low fares airlines? And the answer is yes. In whatever shape that is, whatever form that is, it will come, it will happen, because the service is good, the customers like it, it's great value, and you don't require the same things from short haul that you do from a long haul journey. So it's a kind of structural change.
Okay. Maybe one word. I mean, we didn't really discuss the European issues. I mean, the policy issues. But there is one point that comes back. I mean, all the time about social practices, about social dumping within Europe. Ryanair had some problems here in France as well. I mean, is there actually social dumping in this industry, Alex?
Look, what we need is exactly the same rules being applied everywhere. Wouldn't that be wonderful? If we all had exactly the same labor rules, terms and conditions agreed across Europe, this issue would go away. And I hope that one day we will get to that point. In the meantime, there is no other choice, absolutely, unequivocally, to follow the rules of each country and to look for ways to develop the traffic and to develop the routes following absolutely exactly each and every one of the set of the rules. And at the same time, of course, highlight the virtues of being able to have a more homogeneous environment of rules across the whole of Europe, which I'm sure will be a very slow process. But in the meantime, you have to continue working, you have to do the best that you can, and you have to abide by those rules in each country.
So one of the reasons I think EasyJet is succeeding is because we do not agree with social dumping in any way. We have local contracts in France. We are the only airline that is non-French originally that has, we have over 1,000 people who are based in France. Our crew are based in France. Our planes are based in France. So we are a very good citizen. And I think that is reflected in every market that we operate. We absolutely comply with social and, of course, all legislation. And I think the days of where you could do things differently or under the wire, I mean, since I've been at EasyJet, we are a good citizen, and wherever we operate, we will comply and we will do the right things. That's very important.
Yes, Didier, on this issue of social regimes, labor law, I mean, do we actually have legal certainty in Europe? I mean, are we sure which legislation we should apply in that country for the Cruz, for the other kind of person? And I mean, it seems to me that it's not clear yet. I mean, you have companies that decide actually to abide to the law. I mean, to respect the law and the legislation, but others are less convinced that they should do so. So.
Yes, in terms of social, I don't think it's about low fare, low cost are not following the social rules. For sure, not. It's not such issue, except perhaps it's not following the rules. But Ryanair implements a very, very flexible model, and for sure they follow the social rules. But the first topic is how the not legacy, but airlines are able to implement a really, really agile model. And when you are an airline and operate for many years, not so easy with a lot of social agreements to fit with your needs. The need, it's sometimes you need a lot of capacity during the summertime on some routes, and you need to downsize your operation during the winter time. And not so easy for airlines with some a lot of constraints regarding the social agreements, and for the new airlines, they have less rules. That's the first topic. It's more regarding agility and able to flexibilize your level of operation, fitting and matching with the social rules, but more of the social rules, the point it's regarding the unions.
Yes.
The other topics, it's the business model of most of the low-cost airlines. It's to have a pan-European way of working, so they are able to balance the cost regarding where the costs are less than on the other. So for the France, the problem is, yes, the level of the social cost, but that's a French issue, and it's not an issue regarding legacies and low-cost airlines.
Yes, but it seems that, of course, flag carriers have a real problem with social costs because of history. Okay? But what do we need to have really a level playing field?
Yeah.
What should be
It's
done?
an issue.
Should we have
Yeah.
a European
in the
law, or should we have, I don't know,
in fact,
decisions against certain actors of the
perhaps
market?
we could have, but you mentioned that it's quite difficult. It's the same case for the consolidation. It's not so easy to have the same rules, and the European Union never gets such a way. Perhaps we could try to push on that way, or at an international level, and that's the same issues regarding the low cost and the short, medium haul and the long haul flight. It's to have an international social rule that in some other industry they are able to implement.
Do you think it would
I
be
think
the
this is a
solution,
good
Caroline?
question. Well, I mean, it's a good question because it is applied very differently. I mean, the way we work in France is not the way anyone else works in France from a low-cost point of view. It costs us a lot more money to operate the way we operate, but it is the right thing to do. What we would just want in return, really, is that it was applied more it was applied to all. And the other thing I think is that in return, I think that you'd want the level playing field when you're doing any other negotiation, whether it's with the airports, whether it's with the ground handling side of things, for there to be a level playing field too. So our model is very different to a legacy airline, but most airports do work towards the legacy airline model because that's what they've done for 40 years. So I think the level playing field question that you ask is broader than simply about social legislation. I completely agree with you. It would be nice if it was applied more equally.
Do you have the same policy like EasyJet as regards personnel? I mean, just applying national law?
No, absolutely. And as we keep growing, we keep on making sure that we are abiding by the fiscal responsibilities, by the labor law responsibilities of all the different regions that we move into. We're still largely a Spanish-based company which continues to grow across the whole of Europe. But there isn't any other option. There's no way that you can make a proposition to a country and at the same time not make propositions from a labor perspective that are accepted by the country. It's not possible to do that. So you have to continue working with what's available and at the same time highlight potential development opportunities as well on regulations.
I turn to the organizers. I want to know until, because we begin a bit late, so when should we stop? Can someone tell me, do we have 5 minutes, 10 minutes more? Should we stop soon? 2 minutes? Well, 2 minutes, 2 questions, maybe? Yes. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. The lady first, if you don't mind, and yeah, here. If you would be so kind to just to tell who you are and then ask your questions.
My name is. It's not working.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. My name is Andrea Rothman. I'm a reporter with Bloomberg News, and I'm based in Toulouse, in France. I have a question for Carolyn. You said that 45% of the travelers on your Paris to Toulouse route are business flyers. Is that the highest concentration of business travelers that you have on any route in Europe? And if not, where do you have the highest concentration of business travelers? And secondly, as you know, Air France has La Navette, the shuttle going 27 flights a day between Paris and Toulouse. Have you ever thought of doing something like that for very high density business routes like this?
So it's one of our highest, but we would reach that level of penetration on business on many routes. So the Gatwick-Moscow will have that level of penetration for business. The London-Amsterdam will have that. The Milan-Paris will have that. So there are some very high-level business routes where we will easily be doing 40, 42, 45% of business travelers. Your point about the Air France schedule, Paris-Toulouse, we would not try and do 27, but we do a lot. I mean, we'll do 10, 12 a day, but that's right for us. That works for our model, that works for us, and we can be profitable doing that. So we don't look at anyone else's schedule and say, what do they do, shall we copy it? We say what works for us in our schedule and what works with our turns, what works for our passengers, and that's how we do that.
Thank you, Carolyn. Just one more question, yes. So.
Hello, Pascal Parent with AR. 2 questions indeed for you. The first one will be more related on the competition in France. Don't you think the main competition for your operation will be the high-speed train that does not operate under the same rules? That means they don't have to pay their customer fees if they are 2 hours late, as you have to do. This is the first question. And the second question, I'd like to have the view of both of you on Transavia, because it's not exactly the same model than your company, Alex. But do you think the business model will be sustainable without the subsidies of Air France they are getting actually?
Well, on the high-speed train, we always see train as competition. So we don't make too much distinction between other airlines and train. So a high-speed train would always be seen as competition. And we will make sure that in any country where we are against a high-speed train, we choose our routes carefully and we price carefully. So we take that into account before we make a decision on a route, and we make it we're very clear about the pricing of that and whether we have the margin on that. So we take that into account. I think you highlight a very good point, which is EU 261, which is the law about delays, and we are, unfortunately, as airlines, the insurer of last resort. We have tried very hard to show that this is not the right way to do it, but we have to honor that because we have to comply with the legislation, and of course we will look after our passengers. But I mean, it is a very expensive, it can be a very expensive thing for an airline when it's an air traffic control strike, it's out of your control, or it's a volcano, it's completely out of your control, and yet you end up insuring your passengers for everything for a period of 48 hours plus. So it's very unfair, and that is kind of your question, which is there's one rule for airlines, sometimes there's other rules for other players, so it's difficult that.
About Transavia, Monsieur de Juniac ici, so I have to be careful with my answer, but the answer is very simple. The answer is very simple. At the end, the target has to be, the technical target is 4 euro cents per available seat kilometer. So if you have an airline that is around 4 euro cents per available seat kilometer of cost, then you survive. And if you don't survive to fly in the short haul. So I have no idea, I cannot comment. I don't know enough about this particular project. But if they're able to reach that cost base, they will be a fantastic solution as an alternative to help Air France. That would be my, if I was Monsieur Juniac, I would go to the Transavia, I would say, this is the target. How quickly can you give me this target? And from there on, then you can develop it. I don't know.
I think we have to stop now. I want to thank you, thank the three of you very much for having been with us today, and to thank the public, and just go on listening. There are many other panels and roundtables to listen to today, so I wish you a very nice day here. Thanks, bye-bye.